alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakumullahu khairan. I would like to thank everyone who has watched the video, followed the page of Muslima Open Talk, and subscribed on YouTube and like the page as well. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah reward you with goodness. So why Islam? Why Islam? Well, why not Islam? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I consider myself very fortunate and most grateful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah for his guidance. When we look around us, we are surrounded with a barrage of things that may not even benefit us. But unfortunately, because they are in our faces, we are bound to pay attention and, maybe just roll with things. And slowly, some of us have been drawn into distractions that we could easily avoid. For the reason the people who develop those contents put it out there to get everyone they can, to be involved, engaged, and maybe even provide a platform for them also to feel like they are being heard and seen. There are not too many religious contents that people like to watch, or people would sit down to watch without getting bored. That's the truth. Let's be real here. Even when it comes to children, trying to get them engaged religious wise, Islamically, it's difficult. You find that they would rather watch the Disney movies than sitting down to watch anything Islamic. It's unfortunate. Honestly, it's unfortunate. It's something that I always get so passionate about. I always say that I wish I was a content developer so I could write, children's stories, so I could, create animations. It's like I want to be everything, like I want to be one of the superheroes in the Disney movies, and the Marvels, and all that. But then again, I don't want to attune that shortcoming to lack of education or fund. The problem is we are not prioritizing religious content, stuffs, anything that is religious. We don't prioritize it. Anything Islamic, we don't tend to pay that much attention. Only a handful of people do that. For instance, if you want to send your child to school, you rather they attended the contemporary schools than taking them to Islamic schools. Why? Because we see the Islamic schools as substandard. And I wouldn't blame anybody for that. The reason is actually more societal than it is religious, if you agree with me. You look around you, we have mushroom classrooms, mushroom schools, schools spring up like once you have a classroom that you can pack kids in, then there is who's giving them the approval? Is the government regulating the standard and the structures that has to be complied with before. So it's the same thing. What I'm trying to say is that it's the same thing that applies to any school we look at and consider substandard Islamically. It isn't because they are Muslims. It is because the society itself, the system, is not ensuring that people are complying and meeting up the required standard before they admit learners into schools. So it's the same thing that on the social media platform, there are a lot of content that has got nothing to do with self-development, growth, improvement, like it may not add any value to your life, but you see yourself being so engrossed in it. And it's because it's in your face. Sometimes you may not even be interested, but say for instance, groups on WhatsApp, they just messages go viral, and before you realize it, you are seeing one video after another, things like that, reading stories. For me personally, for me, I have a kind of self-discipline that I'm humbly going to tell you now that applies to my philosophy of life. The way my brain works, if something isn't really going to bring me new knowledge, it's going to challenge me intellectually, stimulate my mind, I don't usually settle for those things. That's just the way my brain is wired. I'm telling you, I don't deliberately. I found that I just discovered that I get impatient when people sit down with pettiness. When people are so comfortable being petty, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. It's like I have a short circuit for tolerating tolerating pettiness. I can't stand it. I'm telling you. So it's the same thing that sometimes when I look around me, and if I see that the people that now by circumstance subjected to interact with, if I find that there's something that could be mutually benefit, then I'll contribute. Otherwise, I keep my peace. Regarding this talk show, uh, it's something that I can say has been one of my long-term dreams since I was a kid. I think I can just say that being introduced to television at an early age had a lot to do with that. In the 80s, we would watch news, even though there was nothing interesting about it. We would watch news. NTA would be on, and on Sundays it would be Newsline, and then you know, so and naturally I'm very conversational. Look, except we cannot communicate in any language. If I meet with you today, like I said earlier, if I believe that us being in that space, sharing that space at that particular time could be mutually beneficial to us, I would initiate a conversation if you don't start it. And if you initiate the conversation, and I see that it can get somewhere, I would contribute. Otherwise, I would be comfortable just being an observant. So it was the same thing. Me being drawn to talk shows, and always wishing that I had a platform where I could sit with people of like minds, even outside Islamic stuff. I've always enjoyed things like that, which is why most of my writings are not targeting a particular religion. They are just inspirational stuffs, like everyday things that all of us can relate with. That's the reason behind my writings, being non-sectarian. I believe that the message can be applied to anybody, irrespective of your faith, because it talks about our relationships, our interactions, the things, just general things that anybody could learn from. And then I realized that it's only during Ramadan that we have programs that targets Muslims. It is seasonal. So if it isn't Ramadan, we don't get to have the talk shows, or where we see Muslimas, or even any Muslim at that, being interviewed consistently. That is the word here. The watchword there is consistency. There are other times that there could be a news discussing or talking about any Islamic related subject, and then you would have a Muslim come on, and then they'll be interviewed. So I saw that vacuum, and with my own long-term dream of wanting to do something in the media. um, Initially I used to think that perhaps I would end up in a TV station, and I would be maybe a reporter or something like that. That was even long before I studied communication science. But as Allah would have it, I wouldn't want to say unfortunately, as Allah would have it, I've been I've been a sojourner. I've not been home. I've not been home, so I didn't get my tertiary education at home, and I didn't even get to practice teaching after leaving teachers training college. After completing teachers training college, I wasn't able to practice before my family headed out of the country. So, and then the other circumstance that resulted to me considering this at this point in time was because I'm homebound. I'm homebound in the sense that I'm a homemaker. I'm studying a distant learner, which is the same process I went through uh, to obtain my first degree. And studying from home got me so acquainted with the internet beyond what I would ordinarily have chosen, because I would rather be doing something else and not be stuck with one thing.